Okay, let's call the September meeting to order at 1:02. Are there any announcements? Okay, seeing none. Public comment. I believe we have a representative of Boston Spa here to speak to us.
You should know that you can't hear them, they may be muted.
We can't hear you. You can't hear us either.
Hi, good afternoon. I don't know if Andrea Simmons is on yet, our library director, or if you can hear me.
We can hear you now.
I unmuted. I'm not.
Whoops.
I can hear you.
Remember she muted again.
Andrea, we're having trouble hearing. Can you speak? I know somebody from Boston Spa wanted to speak. Can you unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Taking it off and on.
Sporadically, we can hear.
Now we hear. In the interest of time, if I may, can we switch the agenda to allow the auditor to speak first,
Sure.
then come back to public comments?
Sure. Without any objection.
I saw him at one point, but I don't see him now.
We're not seeing
I
everyone.
don't think this is working at all, because the light's not going on. The owls now.
The button. You pass me a cookie because the black button. The button's actually in front of us.
Oh, I'm not sure what button.
You know.
I'm gonna put them in front of us.
No, thanks.
Leave them off.
Is it on?
Well, there's a little blue glow at the bottom.
We can all hear you.
Oh, they could hear us.
Okay.
Yes. We can see you and we can hear you.
But we can't hear anybody that's on.
It depends. UHY, could you speak, please?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Eric Hennessy from UHY, and I'm here to present our audit report on December 31, 2022. First off, I would just want to thank everybody for giving us the opportunity to perform the audit and be here to present today. And also a thank you to management for assisting us, throughout the audit process. So we performed the cash receipts and disbursements audit, which is not generally accepted accounting principles. And we issued our report in March of 2023. Our report is an unqualified opinion, which is the highest level of service you can get. So it's a clean opinion, clean report. No issues were noted in terms of any kind of thing that we would have to change our opinion. Now, I just want to go through the audit process briefly. We perform a risk-based audit, so we focus our attention where we feel, the risks warrant that attention. starting to get an echo here. Oh, there it goes. And part of our audit, we look at internal controls. You know, we don't test internal controls, but we get an understanding of your internal controls, and we also perform a walkthrough that assists us in planning our audit. Now, I just want to go through the financial statements. You know, the audit report is on pages 1 and 2. It's like I mentioned, it was a clean report. If we move over to page 3, that this is the statement. Does everybody have the financial statements? Okay. Now, page 3 is your statement of cash receipts and disbursements of your general fund. Now, looking at your receipts overall, you know, there was a decrease from 2021 in the amount of around 290,000. You know, that's the result of a decrease in state aid of 265,000. And there was some CARES Act funding last year in the amount of 40,000 that didn't repeat. Now, the reason the state aid is down is that some of the monies from 2020 was delayed and received in 2021. And that didn't happen this year. So in 2021 is higher because there was some money from 2020 that was received in 2021. So that's kind of the difference there. You know, so overall your receipts were down, you know, but it's explainable. It was just, you know, mainly some timing things. And there was some COVID money, the 40 grand from that appeared in 21 that didn't repeat in 2022. Moving down your disbursements line in the general fund, overall, your disbursements were very consistent year over year. You know, they're up around $33,000 overall. You know, transfers to the trust and agency fund was about 60 grand increase. Joint automation fees decreased by 39,000. And your general disbursements were up just around 10,000. So overall, I mean, disbursements were fairly consistent with prior year. Now, this resulted in a net decrease in cash of $71,000 for 2022. But your cash balance, as you'll see at the bottom of the page, is still strong. You still got 2.2 million as of year end 2022. You know, there's like $8,400 in a checking account, and the rest is in money markets, and there's 1.5 million in CDs in 2022. Does anybody have any questions on page 3? Okay, I'll move over to page 4, which is the statement of cash receipts and disbursements of the trust and agency fund. Now, this is just mainly transfers from the general fund to cover payroll. So the receipts in and the expenses out really are very close. You can see here that, you know, the expenses exceeded receipts by about $2,000 in 2022. And in 2021 was the opposite. You had a little more receipts than you had disbursements by about $2,400. So overall, you started the year with 10,000 and you ended it with 8,120. Moving on to page 5. Page 5 is the notes to your financial statements. Note 1 is just a summary of significant accounting policies. These are just the accounting policies of the Southern Adirondack Library System. You know, the organization just talks about the system. The basis of presentation just talks that they're in accordance with cash basis, and it's got cash receipts and disbursements. And then you just have rev rec, your depreciation, your tax status. And the last one will be subsequent events. If there was anything that happened after year end that would impact the financial statements, we would have to disclose that. Note 2 is just your cash balances. Just basically explains the composition of your cash balances as a year end. On the top of page 6, you know, it talks about the FDIC coverage and the requirement to have collateral. You know, because any deposits that exceed FDIC insurance are required to be collateralized. And there are collateral held by the custody banks that meet your requirements as of 12/31/2022. Moving on to note 3, Note 3 is just related party transactions and concentrations. Part A just lists, as you're reimbursed for expenses, you reduce your disbursements down. So this is just a schedule of reimbursements. There's a little bit of timing difference here. In 2022, there was 12 months of reimbursements, where 2021, there was 11. So that's kind of explains the difference year over year in the reimbursements. Moving over to page 7, note B at the top is just mainly your concentrations. The majority of your cash receipts comes from the state of New York and local governments. So it's any curtailment of those funds could have a material impact, on the organization. Note 4 just talks about your the disbursements out of each fund. The general fund disbursements, are mainly, aid paid to member libraries, office expense, professional fees, insurance, repairs and maintenance, professional memberships, equipment. It's just all your general expenses that are paid. And the trust and agency fund is mainly for payroll and employee benefits. So your salaries, your payroll taxes, any health insurance, any retirement benefits, that all comes out of the trusted agency fund. So that's a summary of your financial statements. Does anybody have any questions on the financial statements or the notes to the financial statements?
Any questions?
No.
Okay, none. Thank you very much. Job well done.
Thank you.
It's nice to hear that we're in good shape.
Yes.
I just have one, and it's purely at your discretion because you're not required to do so, but did you see any suggestions, minor versus major, as far as improvements to internal systems or anything like that?
No, the internal systems were consistent year over year. We sit down with management and, we have a conversation on the systems. During COVID, there were some changes where things had to be done remotely and, through internet or through email and such, but now as you're returning to, as we emerge from COVID, everything's getting back to the way it was before, so the controls, we review them, we talk with management, and we didn't notice any issues with your internal controls.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Eric.
All right, thank you.
Okay, do we have a connection now with Boston Spa?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Andrea.
I'm sorry for the technical issues earlier. My name is Andrea Simmons. I'm the director of the Boston Spa Public Library. I've been there for 20 years, and in that time, we haven't had any major construction. The building was first built in 1959, and we've done little things here and there, but nothing major. So we submitted a grant for the DLD New York State construction money, which would be part 1A of our master plan. This would be a 2-story small addition, and that upper addition would be a reading room. It would be a an multi-purpose room. And really, it's very important. We have a lot of work from home people that use our library, and they just take any table they can find. But having this dedicated quiet room would be so beneficial for these folks that work from home that just need a different space. People rely on our Wi-Fi. So having this room would be very, very beneficial, as well as having an activity space after school for, a program for school kids. Downstairs would be a local history room. We've got quite an extensive collection that isn't being housed properly. It's sectioned off from our community room, which is like a basement type of situation. So many of our irreplaceable items aren't being housed properly. So this addition would be climate controlled, locked, so it would be secure. and the documents would be stored correctly. And it would also be a secondary meeting space. Our room is used by all local government entities. So like the village meetings are held in our community room. All the committees use our room. There are times when it is so needed, like we had our board meeting and the village had their board meeting at the same time place. So it would be nice to have an alternate meeting space, and the local history, the newly erected local history would be a wonderful place for that overflow or that double booking, which doesn't happen a ton, but it does happen from time to time. And people in the community use our meeting space all the time. It's very, very hard to find a free meeting space. So having this additional meeting room, AKA our local history room, would be indispensable for the whole community. So does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, would access to the second story be through the first story, or are there separate means of access to each?
On the main floor, it would just be an extension of the main floor. It would be off on the south side. So it would just be a long room with doors. So if we were having an activity, people could access through those doors. But otherwise, during the day, the doors would be open for anyone to use, to read the paper, to do quiet work. It would be a quiet space during the day.
But access to the second story, would that be through the first story, or would there be separate
It's upstairs.
access?
It's upstairs. So the local history room is on the bottom floor.
Right.
You have to enter into the community room to gain access to that part. And then you'd walk upstairs to the main floor where all of our collections are. And that's where you would find the second story reading room.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to know if there was an elevator? Is there an elevator?
There is an
No.
elevator, yes.
Oh, there is?
Oh, there is an elevator.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's good too.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, it's flexible.
Oh, yeah. We also have a ramp on the other side. Some people don't like elevators. So we have two kind of handicapped accessible ways to get in.
That's good.
Yeah. I think Lori, my trustee, wanted to speak as
Only
well.
get to one room through another, it's disruptive.
So Andrea, I am the chair of the construction committee, which met just prior to this. And there were 7 applicants for the money, and if everyone got 75%, there was not enough state funds to cover all of that. So the committee voted to grant you 65% of the request. And I understand you had an earlier discussion that you could find the matching funds to make that work.
Yes, we do.
So does that number work?
That would work for us.
Okay, well, that's the number that's going to the state.
Okay, that sounds good. And I'm not sure if Lori is still on the line.
I am here, yes.
Oh, wonderful.
know.
I don't know if you wanted to speak as well.
Go ahead, Lori. We can.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Lori Acey. I'm a Board of Trustee member for the Ballston Spa Public Library, and I serve as the secretary as well. And we just wanted to thank you all for your consideration of our library. And I'm sorry, but my Zoom kind of cut in and out while Andrea was speaking. But I think we just wanted to kind of reiterate that it's been definitely almost over 40 years since we've been able to do anything really major to the library. And we spent quite a lot of time planning and engaging the community, and a very solid architect. And our community, as you know, is a 31% in need community for free and reduced lunches. We have there's been an independent economic study of our community, and it's been shown that we're a bit in distress as far as 55% of our community they're considered to be in hardship situation because there's more rental properties than single family homes in Ballston Spa, which not everyone knows. And we just want to say how grateful we are that you considered us in the way that you have, because it benefits so many children and so many of our community members in all ages and stages. And I think, we've had a really good group that's actually bonded as a community over this process and engaged everyone that lives in the village. Our board is very much about doing the best thing by our community and not necessarily even like egos are at the door, skills come to the table. And this is just a really, we're just very grateful to you. And we wanted to be sure to jump on and tell you that and our appreciation of you considering us.
Thank you, Lori. I was particularly interested in the local history emphasis too. I know that at my base library in Clifton Park Half Moon, we have a big local history room, and of course it's concentrated on the Erie Canal and the Mohawk River and whatnot. And you, of course, are the historic county seat for so many years before even some of these other towns grew up. So it's important that you preserve that history.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. One of the biggest issues we have is that we don't have a lot of dedicated rooms. So we have a lot of open space, and the local history area is one of those open spaces. And it does have a lot of incredible ephemera and, things that were dedicated to the library. And we definitely wanted to have a, temperature controlled room, a room where things could be displayed and people could access things easily, where things weren't going to disintegrate or deteriorate over time. And like you said, we are the county seat, and there's a lot of really amazing things that started in Ballston Spa. And we feel like we have a nice partnership with the Saratoga History Center. And we've tried to build relationships that way in order to understand best how we should approach that room. And so it's very special to us, and we appreciate your commenting on that.
Well, not only climate control, but when you're dealing with historic artifacts too, security as well too.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very important. We have people coming from all over the country to access our records.
Sure.
So security is really important as well as preservation.
Okay, anything you want to add?
No, thank you for your consideration. We really appreciate it.
Any
many
further questions
thanks.
from the board? All right, thank you very much.
Okay,
You're
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of June 20th. We got I believe most of you had a chance to quickly review the amended copy of the minutes and the agenda. And are there any corrections, or are there any additions that are necessary for the minutes? Okay, seeing none, I think our procedure now is to just request that they be filed. I don't think we need a vote now for that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the new procedure, right? Yes. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the treasurer's report. Bob.
I'll be doing 3 months, so basically I'll do the starting money's in, money's out, and anything unusual that took place as far as receipts and so forth during the month. We started off our month of June with $1,637,000, and we had a total of $123,000 come in, and we spent 193, so we ended up with $1,566,000. The only not ordinary from month to month item that we had one CD that matured in June, and we received $3,561 in interest during that month. In the month of July, we started off obviously with what we ended June with $1,566,000. The month of June, we received a large amount of most of our state aid, with the exception of 10% in a couple different categories. Plus, we received Warren County and Hamilton County aid of $66,500. So we had receipts of $1,528,296. So we ended the month with a healthy $3,094,112. Which was the beginning balance for the month of August. 2,685,222. And during the month of August, we didn't have any unusual receipts or disbursements. We received $121,635, and we spent $219,197, which brought our balance down to $2,587,661. During the month of September, in fact, next week, we have another CD that's going to mature, another 500,000. That's a 5% CD, and I assume that we will roll that over. And I don't know what the percentages will be yet. They won't give you a quote until like a day or two before the maturity date, but
Unlikely to be lower though, given the economy.
it might, no, and not necessarily.
Really?
Because as the Fed, adds things, our interest rate goes up. Although it may be like a couple of tenths of a point down a little bit.
Right.
I think I've been looking at like 4.8, 4.9, somewhere in there. But we'll see next week what it is. And that's basically it.
Okay, any questions of the treasurer about the reports?
The warrants were all, you had a link to all the warrants for the 3 months.
Right. Okay, and again, I believe those are just filed at this point?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right, move on to Sarah, Director's Report.
I always kind of dread the September Director's Report, and I apologize for advance, how thick it was. But, over the summer, the SALS staff did a lot of really good work. And you all had that in your packet. So I'm just gonna do an oral report on things that happened since I wrote the report. The first thing is that Jamie LaRue, who is an expert on intellectual freedom, presented a webinar on censorship and challenges. And I think it was very well received. I saw some of your names there, and I hope you were as entertained and learned as much as I did. Whenever I had the opportunity to listen to Jamie, I learned something new. We had about, I think, 150 people, and the reviews were very good. When I attended the Saratoga Springs Public Library Board meeting last night, I was asked if SALS could host trustee book discussion groups. And the first book they would like to talk about is Jamie's new book on censorship, A Public Librarian Examines Council Culture in the US.
Right.
So I thought that was a really good idea, and I said, I'm gonna bring it to the SALS board. And just a little bit about Jamie. He's a longtime public librarian, and according to the review, issues a balanced and reasonable call to action for all citizens. Topics in this particular book include the role of the library in America, culture, and community, the consequences of cancel culture, 7 things citizens can do to quell book banning and censorship attempts. And the reviewer goes on to say, by examining past efforts at censorship and their dangerous impacts, LaRue asks the reader to reflect on how those times are not so different from today. I think he's talking about McCarthyism. This book is essential for all those who believe in free expression, support libraries, and cherish the central freedoms that American democracy represents. I think it could be a very robust conversation. And I'm going to transition to culture wars. I just wanted to let you know that libraries outside of Chicago, Illinois have had bomb threats. Many, too many. I mean, one is too many, but there were many, and I'm not going to go into it, but you can Google it. And what really surprises me about all of this culture war that's going on, 71% of voters from both sides, all sides of the aisle, oppose efforts to remove books from public libraries. 67% of voters, again on both sides of the aisle, oppose efforts to remove books from school libraries. So there's more of a conversation there. And I think Christine, you might have sent this article around. Research has shown the recent efforts to ban books began with just 11 people. Maybe Elaine, you sent it. Somebody sent it to me.
I read it.
Oh, yeah. Whoever sent it, I read it.
You know, and that's kind of chilling. And a lot of the attempts are coming from outside the community. It's not the community expressing, it's outside efforts. And that's something to keep an eye on. What I have here for you somewhere. I had it. I'm trying to be so organized and I fail so badly. What I'm sharing with you now are some talking points. Jack, Scott, and Erica felt that perhaps having some talking points about when people come into the library to talk to you, as well as intellectual freedom challenges. So they're on both sides. And this is something that I think practice helps. I don't know about all of you, but I don't like confrontation at all. I'd rather hide under the table. But this is, if you read about it and think about it, this could give people some talking points so that they feel more comfortable if somebody came up to them and asked them questions. It can be customized for every one of the libraries. And Jack has offered to help customize it for each library. Jack is nodding, saying, okay, thanks, Sarah. You added something to but anyway, this was shared with the library directors, and I just thought you'd like to see some of the good work that Erica and Jack are doing. My library is
Just, and a quick scan, and maybe it's here, and I didn't see it, but two of the, additions we did to our policy in Waterford was that we only accepted challenges from residents of the community. And second, that any individual book would be challenged once in any 5-year period, so that we didn't have,
That's very clever. That was a smart thing to do.
And another thing to be added to, this is great, these talking points are great, so thank you, Jack and Erica. I forgot whether it was the most recent one that we sponsored, but because I've sat in on 2 or 3 of the webinars on intellectual freedom, but one of the panelists, one of the speakers, one of the moderators, went a step further and said, of course, our foundation is that, you know, I can choose what I want to read, and by extension, perhaps choose what my family wants to read, but I can't choose for the whole community. And that's a very rock bottom important point. One of the moderators went a step further and said, we shouldn't just depend on that, because basically what you're talking about is your basic First Amendment constitutional right. And that's true in schools, and it's true in libraries. It's the basic freedom of expression, freedom of information. And the whole idea of a library is to bring many sources of information and then to be able to discuss and debate about them. So I didn't see that on this, but that's something to remember too. It probably isn't the best one to come up first when somebody's coming in and asking about something for their kids or whatever. But it's also true that we tend to forget that we're also upholding the Constitution by upholding this intellectual freedom as well, and the people who framed the Constitution.
I'll throw in one more thing if I may, Russ.
Sure, please.
Sometimes when a member of the community, and I'm only going to address members of the community, come in and are concerned about a book, what they really want is having that conversation, to be heard, to be acknowledged, and in a few of our libraries, a conversation is held, and there's an understanding explaining just that. it's First Amendment and the library has to have a variety and a lot is done in that when the director is talking to the patron or whoever the spokesperson is, and usually it's the library director.
Right.
That comes through and it's having that conversation and not letting it escalate into something. And I'm happy to say many of the SALS directors have that skill.
Right.
And
following through, if it turns, sometimes just a discussion is enough to diffuse the concern. Sometimes you need to have a procedure for looking into it, and then you need to get back to the person who has made the criticism or challenge or whatever. And we just last night, proud to say that we've not only developed these procedures for the library staff, but we just updated and amended our policy manual for the trustees to reflect review of purchase of new materials, to review of challenges to books or anything else, events or whatever, procedure for doing that. All of that is in the trustees policy manual as well too. So something to tell in your areas, your fellow directors and whatnot, that just make sure everything is up to date. And of course, a hot one now is also, the section on public comment at meetings, and that's another one where we talked about that last time we met. But so that's very important. If you're protected, if you're up to date, and if the library staff understands what the policy is, then it should minimize some of the problems.
thank you, Russ.
We had, I mentioned in Greenwich, we had a speaker who came, the author of a YA novel, and one of the main characters was middle grade age and had concerns about, trans behavior and all. And the program was really well attended, and it was really positive, and it was really, it was a great program. All ages were there. And then there was a letter to the editor in the local paper. And it was all about, why do we have these types of programs going on, and what should we do about it? And it just kind of went way off topic because they had other concerns and agendas. But they ended with the question, why don't we all go to the next Board of Trustees meeting, which is on, and they gave a particular date and time. And so we had a big turnout of all positive people. That person never showed up. Nobody else who had any concerns or questions, nobody else. And it was just a big meeting of all kinds of positive comments. And I just left there feeling so good. I don't know, I don't know how else to interpret that, but.
No,
It probably comes back down to that 11 people, right? 11 out of 11 people just are the ones that are causing all the challenging issues, right? That's what you were saying.
That's how they started.
So we just want to make noise. Maybe they're just not.
And you bring up
Can't back it up.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, finish.
No, maybe they just can't back it up. You have other people on the other side of the argument that are willing to back their views up by
Right.
showing up for things like that.
And that is in addition to the other things where we often concentrate on, what should the library director and staff do? What should the trustees do? But it's very important. It's just like questions about a school budget or a library budget, the annual budget. Very important to get these ideas out to your neighbors, people who support the library, because that's what happens when these things come up. The people who enjoy what you're doing come out, but they have to know about it, and they have to know that there's a challenge that you can't just sit on your hands. So, one of the other, it wasn't on intellectual freedom, but one of the other, I think it's one of the Mid-Hudson webinars, talked about one thing the trustees don't do enough, which they need to do more of, is not only talk to their leaders of their human services and their governmental organizations, but talking to your neighbors, your fellow citizens, whether you agree or disagree, because we make the assumption that everybody knows that what we're doing at the library, but a lot of people don't. They need a reminder. So,
Russ, what we're doing at Crandall is, we're putting together some talking points for our trustees. So that, you know, it's budget time and we have to pass our budget by vote. And so, not only about the budget, but about things like censorship and just, you know, just give people some ammunition, so to speak, so that they know what to talk about and how, if they're challenged, what to say. So I'm gonna add this, because I think this is great information as well.
Thank you.
you have a draft of that list?
Not with
Not
me.
yet, no, but can you email it to me, please? Because we're having our staff retreat in October, so our, not
Okay.
staff, I'm sorry, our trustee retreat in October.
Yes, I can get you a copy. We're meeting next week, and I think, that's, we had a draft and then
Great, thank you.
I'll send it to you.
Okay, any
I'm
other
still-
comments? Go
I'm
back
still-
to, I know you, will. Go ahead. We're in no hurry, this is interesting.
Laura, thank you for that story.
Yeah,
Thank you. Bring a story everybody bring an upbeat
Well,
story.
Sarah is such a wonderful director, and she has that regular editorial in the paper also.
So I just need lots of positive stories. Thank you so much. My library visits are going pretty well. I'm really excited and overwhelmed by our libraries, our library staff, our library trustees, and the work being done by the member libraries for their community. And I think your story is one example, Laura, where your library is doing such wonderful stuff and the library sees it, acknowledges it, and supports the library and its services. And your library, Russ, the passing of your budget and the community support you're getting. So I think good libraries, people see it, people appreciate it, especially when you do your community-based plans of service. It goes hand in hand. I'm gonna do kudos to embarrass people, Pamela and Colleen. The New York State Library, I shouldn't say the New York State Library, but the New York State Division of Library Development, or the State Ed Department, has finally approved the SALS annual report.
Yay.
And I'm gonna say that we submitted a really great report. And somehow there was a software glitch, and how much of it was erased? Too much.
I don't know exactly. Some was erased and some were new questions they were asking. Different ways they wanted things answered this year versus last year, so.
But we got that email about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, so that made the summer better.
Cheer, everybody cheer.
Cheer, yay.
yes.
I'm gonna say something that I am incredibly moved and honored and excited that ALA Executive Director Tracy Hall, she invited me to help her celebrate her receiving a Franklin D. Roosevelt Four Freedoms Award. That'll be given out by the Roosevelt Institute, and it's going to be in the FDR Library, which happens to be only an hour and
Right.
23 minutes door to door.
What's the date for that?
It's Saturday.
This Saturday?
Yeah. And you can stream it. Anyway, these awards are presented to some of the most distinguished Americans and world citizens of our time. And her particular award is for freedom of speech and expression, and for her work for defending libraries, advocating for literacy, and working to preserve and expand equal access to information. So I'm verklempt. And I said, what do you have? What do I wear? She said, I thought, oh no, I don't have anything that fancy, but I'll figure something else. Anyway, it's taking place at the FDR Library on Saturday, and a live stream is available beginning at 11 a.m. She even knows me, I'm so excited. Oh, and there were some other people getting medals or awards. And one of them is Nancy Pelosi, and she's getting the Freedom Medal. Dr. Walter Earl Flucker, Freedom of Worship. Adie Barkin, Freedom from Want, and the Honorable Benny Thompson, Freedom from Fear. And these particular awards are named after points that FDR made in his speech. So it's gonna be wonderful. I'm getting the vegetarian.
I did the 4, this is the 5. Almost the same. Yeah.
We're gonna be welcoming Jesse just later on, and you'll be approving a motion to appoint Jesse. He's our newest member of the JA staff, and he's a programmer. And this doesn't have to go into the minutes, but I had nothing to do with the interview process. This is a JA staff member. And he has got amazing qualifications, but I also worked with his grandma. So I'm feeling old. I mean, I remember when his mom got married, so aging is a wonderful thing. Anyway, after the meeting, if you haven't noticed, when you came in, there are posters along the hallway. Do you want to give a review? Is it moving?
It was very well done, yeah. The history of this one family through the Holocaust and the aftermath of that too. So it was very, yeah, I got the whole thing.
Terry Warner awarded us a grant to have this exhibit move from libraries to library. And I'm happy to say that we have our member libraries as partners. We have WMHT as a partner and Skidmore College. So I'm pretty excited. I'm gonna ask that it's budget time for a lot of county budgets. Jill Ryder is finishing up a grant to Saratoga County to purchase downloadable audiobooks. That's due at the end of the month. And then I'd like to ask county representatives to reach out to their county and just say, hi, is there anything you need? So that would be Warren County and Hamilton County, and we're taking care of Saratoga County. The reason there isn't a Washington County is that they changed it. They changed how they award, Bob.
And they don't do not-for-profits except for cooperative extension. It's the only not-for-profit.
Say that again, Bob?
They don't do not-for-profits except for cooperative extension. That was, I don't know, 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago.
I know they haven't given money in a long time, but I didn't know why.
So I just wanted to let you know about that. I think that's the end of my oral report. Did anybody make it through the tone? Do you have any questions? And I just want, once again, compliment the SALS staff. When I go out to my visits, I'm almost embarrassed about the accolades and the love other library boards and staff give to SALS for their support over the years. So thank you, SALS staff, wherever you are. And that concludes my oral report.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Let's move on to committee reports. Audit and finance, Janet.
Okay, we had a meeting, but it was preceded by the personnel committee, so should I do that one first, because they depend on each other here?
Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, personnel met first, and what we are recommending is a 3.5% salary increase for staff. And this was after speaking with Bob and Colleen and getting a recommendation from Sarah. And so that is the recommendation from committee. And then we took that to audit and finance as part of the budget. And recommended no cuts to the budget, again, with Bob and Colleen assuring us that we were healthy. And we based the most important services on, the satisfaction survey that showed what the most critical things that we supply are. So, do you want to talk about that at all? Well, we made the recommendation. I'm wondering, though, with the parking lot thing now, whether we have to go back and revise this before we can.
Depends upon if it's gonna get done this year or next year. If it's gonna get done this year, then
It
we're talking
doesn't.
about next year.
Right, doesn't affect next year's budget.
And I don't know that, I mean, the committee met before, but decided they needed more information.
Yeah.
You're the building committee.
Right.
Yeah, so it's.
We're gonna talk about that.
I was a bystander, so but I think that's what I heard.
So if we opted to go forward to do something this year, then it wouldn't affect next year's budget, it'd just be a budget revision.
We'd have to do an amendment for this year, 2023. But I guess we won't know until the next meeting. Or
Yeah,
somewhere in
for-
between.
based on the information we had at the time, the recommendation going forward was that we recommended no cuts to the budget and, to bring that to the board.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Janet, but, part of the discussions of both of the committee, we did take a look at the fiscal impact, and I've got the 3.5% would only be about a $59,000 impact on the budget, and between some savings and a bit of the surplus, the reserve that we had. That's why we could do it without any changes from year to year in the budget. So is that
Right, that's
your
right.
understanding too? Yeah,
That we have, a very healthy fund balance.
Right.
Going forward. And so it didn't really have a negative impact.
well, it was interesting because both, again, probably at your libraries as well, and Bob knows, here at SALS. The one thing that neither an auditor or the comptroller will tell you exactly what you should have as a balance. Now, here we have a little higher one because sometimes it's 6 or even 9 months before we get our state aid. It's the past years, not recently. It's been a little better, but we always have a bit of a wait. Other places, like a not-for-profit, they say you should have at least a 3 months balance, operating balance. But we're above that, and so we feel very comfortable about that. And I noticed that, I forgot what it was, but somebody just recently was in last week's Times Union. I've forgotten what the organization was, but somebody actually, the comptroller said their fund balance was too high and told them to spend it down. And that's the first time that's happened in a while. Can you remember which organization it was? I can't remember whether it was a fire company. It wasn't a library, but maybe it might have been a school board.
The school boards, they have a specific percentage.
Right.
I think it's either 3 or 4%. Their fund balance can't be greater than 3. I can't remember if it's 3 or 4% of their overall budget.
Well, and I think too, had something to do with accounting practices too, because they were taking their taking their fund balance and plugging it into something that they weren't supposed to, and so it was without accounting for it. So anyhow, I think we're in pretty good shape, and is there any further questions of Janet about the personnel? First of all, the personnel recommendation and then the budgetary recommendation. Okay, this is a committee recommendation in both cases.
We don't vote this month.
Yeah,
We vote next month.
We vote next month, right?
Right.
But you can look it over and bring further questions to next month, and then we will consider passage next month.
And what I do,
Thanks,
Russ,
Mike.
is that I share the budget with our member libraries.
Right.
Yes.
For their input.
Right, okay, very good. Okay, thank you, Janet. Building is Chris.
Yeah, so, we met just prior to this meeting. There were 7 applicants. we are allowed, $962,584 from BLD for construction grant money. And those 7 applicants' requests came to $1,204,000. So we did some juggling. And we allowed different percentages for different libraries. And what we came up with was Boston Spa. Originally, they have a project of $669,000. And we requested $435,000. We are giving them 65% of their request. Then Salem, they're doing a lobby upgrade, windows and some electrical work. They requested, their total project is $13,933. And we are giving them 73% of their request. For Clifton Park, they have a total project amount of $374,401 for children's library renovation, phase 3 of that. Because they have a decent reserve of matching funds, we allowed them 50% in order to get this all fit into the state allowance. Stillwater, they're upgrading their building, and so they needed some controls added to their boiler, and that amount requested was originally $19,000. We are allowed $19,635. We're allowing them 72% of their request. In
Schuylerville.
Schuylerville. Schuylerville owns a building adjacent to the library, and this is the early stage of building addition is to demolish and do some site prep on a vacant residence next door to the library that they've already acquired the property. We've given them 73% of their request for $218,400. And Sarah says that request is that high because there is likely asbestos removal in the building. Let's see, the next one, Cambridge. Cambridge is requesting a reading and program room addition, and we are giving them 50% of their request of $303,903. Then the last one, Lake Pleasant, they are doing some wheelchair accessible walkway, and we are allowing them 73% of the cost of that project, which the total cost of the project is $57.54. So of the $962,584 that are available to SALS from the state, we have got that down to $962,570. So we're giving $14 back to the state. There's a lot of juggling.
That will go for more cookies at the next meeting.
How did you come about the percentages?
It took an hour. It took an
Much
hour.
juggling.
Go ahead, Christine, but it took an
Well,
hour.
for instance, I can only speak for Clifton Park. We're lucky, we got some grants from the legislature and we've got grants from other places. So we were already in agreement that we didn't need 75%, that 50% was fine. And there was some juggling done with some of the other ones, but
Yeah, it kind of had to do with the amount of free lunch students, which is our argument that we can give people more than 50%, which is sort of what the state wanted to see. And then also how much matching funds. In some cases, libraries have projects that if it was 50-50, they couldn't do the project.
Right.
They don't have those kind of reserves.
And briefly speak about one thing that you did was you applied some in terms of priorities, criteria for which projects to do first, which were like handicapped access, for instance, and environmental stuff, and what were a couple of the others? Or was that it, basically, those two?
If it was like an energy efficient.
Energy efficiency.
But
yeah.
definitely
yeah.
like, the ADA accessibility, so we wanted to give the most we could to the people
Right.
putting in a walkway for ADA accessibility.
And anything that would be safety issues.
Safety, yeah. It was amazing how much was accomplished as far as in an hour.
Okay, let's give credit where credit is due.
Yes, again,
Pamela shifting the numbers.
Pamela,
Pamela,
back and forth a lot.
yeah. That was your Zumba for today.
and I also want to give credit where credit is due, is that Pamela spent time going over every single application with a fine tooth comb. She asked the hard questions so that when you got your packets, they were ready to be approved. And she's an expert in Excel. So she took away one of my nightmares, but thank you, Pamela, for doing this.
Mark, she also when they realized that we couldn't give everyone 75%, she also contacted all the libraries to see if they could manage with less or not.
Okay.
So that really played a part in it.
A lot of juggling, I guess.
Yeah, it was.
It's good that we
Okay,
don't have $2 million to give away.
Well, that would be fun.
any further questions or comments about the committee report? You want to offer this as a motion from the committee? It's a committee recommendation, so it does not require a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the committee's recommendation for the granting of state library construction aid? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Okay, bylaws, any thing
Not
this
at
month?
present.
Okay. Central Library aid, Margaret,
No report.
okay. County aid coordinators. Okay. Library service, Carol,
No report.
okay. We had personnel already, and trustee nominating,
Nothing at this
nothing.
time.
Okay. Were we going to hear from building and grounds, Sarah? Or is it maybe not necessary at this point?
Well, we need some input. Anybody know anybody who knows anything about asphalt?
I probably do. I'm sure,
No, but were we,
but that would be the next one.
was it Bill, was Chris? Was Chris,
I'll see.
that was what I was asking.
Oh, he never really got back to me, but he said one of the firms on the list, he would never recommend.
JSSO. Is what his emails are.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's really SSO.
Yeah, but is he able to talk a little bit about it?
No.
We can come back to it if he's willing to talk. If
Okay.
he has an IT emergency. No. What you have in front of you is a letter that, we worked with the SALS Executive Board to write. There is a library that is having some problems. And one of our staff members attended a board meeting, and I personally felt she was treated inappropriately, and the face of a board in the community, it's not a good look. I know this is being recorded. It's unfortunate. Oh, here's.
Hey, there he is.
Weird.
He does exist.
Hey, this is Chris. Chris, this is the board. Hello. We had, Pamela, can you put up can we do that? We have, parking lot estimates. And here are the estimates, Chris. You want to take a look? These are the estimates themselves. Pamela has a chart.
Oh, okay.
And the estimates,
I don't have a computer. I guess it was just for the community.
Oh,
the
okay.
estimates are, Pamela's filling it out.
Yeah.
And we don't know what some of
Who
the,
else is on the?
we don't know what some of the
Pass it
down things need. So like, what's type 6 asphalt?
I don't think parking lots, I don't know.
I just thought you had a big parking lot done.
No,
You might know.
No, I
some of
had
this.
my driveway done, and I had it done by these people. I wasn't impressed with the work they did, and I found them very unprofessional. Now it was probably 6 or 7 years ago. They gave me a good price. But they helped themselves to lawn chairs in my garage and had a whole good time while they were paving my driveway, and it hasn't held up like it should, and I've had it sealed every 2 years. That was my only experience with them.
Okay, I was just wondering if we knew what asphalt number 3 was versus type 6.
I do not know.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hey, at least you took one off our list.
Well, it's also not offering rip out either.
Yeah.
Definitely not doing JS.
Okay, so we just need to do a little bit more work on it. I really thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. Sorry I couldn't be more helpful.
No, it's
Kind of,
okay.
kind of out of my wheelhouse, but
Jason doesn't even have a driveway.
Jason doesn't have a driveway.
So,
He has someone else's driveway.
I mean, we'll find somebody to help us.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
Oh, I want to praise Chris. Chris is in the process of replacing all of the Meraki routers. He's the mind behind it, and he coordinates the wiring, and are you having more fun than you should?
Oh, yeah, I'm always having more fun than I should.
With the Meraki routers. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, then
We're getting back to the letter. So
Yes,
what I'm suggesting, and Russ, you might want to take it from here, is that to be proactive, come up with, as a board, talking to a board kind of thing,
Right.
and I'll leave it in your lap.
The basic thing is that, we provide a number of services, including going out of our way for libraries that are having a particular problem with their construction or with their political climate or with a staff problem or needing to replace a director. We've done a lot of things that are somewhat tricky as an organization, and go beyond the usual JA and training and other, main missions of SALS. In this particular case, one of our staff members went in place of Sarah to one of the meetings. This is the board that's having some contentious problems with local people, but also some division within the board as well. And our South staff member that went was treated very unprofessionally, and basically I added the phrase to the letter abusive language and really raked over the coals, and she was just there trying to help. They were just there trying to help, excuse me. And so basically this is just a letter. You've had a chance to read it. This is just a letter that states that we don't approve of this kind of conduct, and we don't approve of the way that one of ours was treated. And secondly, that as we talked about in other contexts, that the library should have a code of conduct for its own trustees and should have policies and procedures in effect for meetings, for trustee behavior, for public comment, and all of the things that we've been talking about. And so basically that's what's behind it. You've had a chance to look at it. We punched it up in a couple of places, but also it was just simply, we didn't want to be too preachy. We just wanted to get across what was our response as an organization. Any questions or comments about the, what's in the letter?
So I think we would need a motion to approve sending the letter with attachments. And if you don't have a copy of the letter, here's a copy of the letter.
Was it in the packet? I didn't
Yes.
see it.
No.
No.
No, but it was sent.
It was
Yeah,
sent.
I sent an email, yeah.
Yeah.
And with your approval, Russ would sign it and we would send it with the attachments.
Yes, it's from us rather than from Sarah, so.
Yeah.
I may find myself in the local paper, but
You can handle it, Russ.
I think so.
And the code of conduct that's referred to is their code of conduct. It's their board code of conduct.
Right,
They've got it. It's on their website.
right. They've got one and it just wasn't followed in this case. Could I have a motion from the floor?
I'll make the motion.
Jordan, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Margaret. Okay, any discussion? I'll give you a second or two to quickly review before we vote. Yes, one addition is in the second paragraph. It originally just said patronizing language, and I suggested adding abusive to patronizing because he even went beyond patronizing, although the majority of the board members understand the patronizing part.
And if anybody wants, their board meeting is tonight.
Excellent. I particularly like the recommendation to participate in trustee training. Yes. To understand their role.
Sarah, where was the Rockwell Falls again?
Lake Luzerne.
Can I ask a general question on this? Where it says that, that it will not be tolerated. That implies that there's a penalty, there's a repercussion for that. And we're not suggesting any of that.
We're not specifying, but one thing that was discussed as we put the letter together would be to, or if this was something that was repeated or unheeded or whatever, by any of the members that, you know, we are contractually bound to deliver the basic services, but as far as consulting and, you know, going beyond the limit, this might be curtailed until things.
Does that need to be stated here in order for them to understand?
We didn't want to specify to be held as a board policy.
Okay,
We want, but that's a very good question, but we just didn't want to
okay,
specify.
but you do have a backup plan if for toleration.
Well, in our minds, and I'm telling you
Right,
all
yeah,
about it right now.
exactly.
So,
Well, not anymore. Now everybody knows.
that's correct. It's a public meeting, yeah.
It's a nice group of people. I just wanted to say on record, I think the board members care about the community. But it's very emotional.
Me understanding with your question about tolerated now, does that mean you can't be in SALS because we don't tolerate it? I'm just saying, how are they gonna read it? You know, what are they gonna see with that word?
I am not sure, I'm not sure, but we care about the library, we care about the library staff, we care about the library board. I think I can speak for my staff saying that, I mean, I care about all of that, and at first it was gonna be suggesting some punitive stuff, but we're hoping they get better. We're hoping that this will give tools.
I'm not suggesting that there have be punitive stuff. I'm just commenting on her comment that the word tolerated means like, you know, we won't tolerate this, so you're out, you know? I don't want them to
No,
think
but I
that.
will never allow Erica to go to a meeting there again.
Yeah.
I think it suggests that a line was crossed. And I think that's very important, without suggesting the punishment. I think, as a first step, it says some real sort of behavior was totally unacceptable. And I think that's important to let people know.
So I kind of have a question about some history of this. So this board member joined recently following the whole drag queen story hour. Right? Were there problems with the community or board members years ago? Is this something that or I mean, I guess it's something like this could be simmering in all of our communities, and you have one person then.
Looks like there's 11 people who do the book challenge. But yeah.
I don't live in that community, but I can tell you that, I've been spending, well, I want to be careful here.
Quite a bit of time.
I think everybody who sat on that library board really, really cares. I think the library staff care. I think, there's some dissension in the community about what services a library should provide and not should provide. I think people in the community are being very vocal. I'm not going to tell you anything more than what you've read in the newspaper. And I think it's tragic because I think everybody cares, but
And it's not so much about the board member who conducted themselves unprofessionally. This is as much a notice to the rest of the board, to the president of the board, and, the same position that I'm in here, and to the director. And saying that you can't be weak about things like that. You have to have policies and procedures for all kinds of things, including the running of the meetings, and you have to follow your procedures. There has to be some internal discipline. And so it's not like we're disciplining them. We're, as Jordan, I think, said quite well, we're just putting them on notice that we can't agree with this.
Well, and that we're supporting their board. But
Right.
if the board has a code of conduct, it's up to the board to make the members of the board follow the code of conduct.
Exactly.
So it's up to them to take charge of it, right? Not us.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to also tell you, it's a school district public library, and the trustees are elected
Yeah,
by
there you
the
go.
members of the community.
So there are some state education and other things that govern all public libraries too. In terms of not just specific things, but the general idea about the library being open for all and being an educational institution. So,
Bob will remember this, but in the 20 years, because Bob and I go back 2 decades, there was one other library that I asked the SALS board to send a letter. And again, it had to do with how a particular library personality, director, and board member spoke about one of the SALS staff. The SALS staff is professional for people, and we expect, you can disagree, and please disagree, because we don't want everybody to have the same opinion, and we want a diversity of opinions, but do it with respect.
I'd like to make a motion that we send this to
Sorry.
We already.
we're already
Quite
made a
sorry.
motion.
Couldn't
So
hear.
I'll just simply say, is there any further discussion or comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Okay, next,
Oh, you're gonna need to sign this before you leave.
I will.
How long ago did that happen, by the way, at this point? The incident?
August 22nd.
Yeah.
August 22nd.
Oh, I missed that on the.
Are you gonna mail it or hand deliver it to me?
I'm busy today.
I don't know if anybody wants to walk to that and show up at that.
Maybe a knock on the-
But I also
It'll be
wanted
a
to
dagger.
book your.
Thank you
Normal
for
business
passing
thing would be
this.
available.
Thank you for passing this. And I think everybody who's a trustee takes your role very, very, very seriously. And if they reach out and ask for mentorship, I can't think of a better group of people to be there as a mentor, where it's a peer-to-peer.
Plus, if you go, it's a beautiful location.
It's, I think they're
Exactly,
just
the
having
backyard.
some growing pains right now.
Okay, let's move on to the next item, which would be approval of Erica Freudenberger to attend the PLA meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Elaine,
Second.
seconded by Janet. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, and then we have a recommendation for Sarah, Jill, Erica, and Jack, the NILA Annual Conference, which is, you probably all know, but it's in Saratoga Springs in November again this year. And it's well worth dropping into for a day if you can. Chris and I are local, so we have a standing lunch, and we've gone the last, what, like 5 years or something like that, yeah. We usually see Janet too there, yeah, because but they have some great stuff, and it's great to meet people from other parts of the state as well, too. Okay, can I have a motion to approve them to attend the meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Linda, is there a second? Seconded by. I always get it wrong. Laura, okay, I was looking over here at Laura, okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, and the next is the budget amendment. Okay,
Colleen had to go to the bank, so. You want me to talk?
yes, please do.
Or Janet, you want to talk? No, you don't. It's pretty easy. I think
Grateful
everyone has a copy of it. And basically, it's an amendment to reflect what we actually received for state aid versus what we had budgeted, more. And then the allocation of where that money. We have the income side on the top and the expense side on the bottom. And it basically is allocating the additional monies that we didn't budget for.
How much more did we get than we expected?
It's like 77,000.
Well, that's always.
But that includes some grant and aid, Assemblywoman Warner of $30,000 and construction aid
Okay,
of 38, so that's 68, so
so
about 9,000.
some of it was specified, that most. of it was-
And 9745 is what came from the budget increase, or the state aid increase.
Very good. Any further questions? Could I have is this coming from finance as well or not? You didn't mean that, okay, let's have a motion on the floor then. Proposed by Jordan, is there a second? Seconded by Carol. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, the 2024 budget, we've already talked about, okay? The parking lot estimates, we've already talked about.
Well, do we have to take some action on it, formally table it?
Do we want to take,
If we table it, what are we gonna do?
yeah, we wanted to look more, should we take action on this in November? Is that too late, or is,
We could do.
or
it in
I mean, October, I'm a month off.
Do we have time for there's still time to pay?
By the time we meet in October, their November cutoff, that might be.
It might be too cold to do it too.
Well, I don't know if that's a good reason to spend $50,000
Right.
because it's too cold.
Right.
I mean, we've lived with this parking lot since 2004.
Okay,
But then if we don't do it this fall, it means pushing it into next year's budget.
yeah.
Correct.
We would have to redo the budget.
We could also do an amendment.
We could do an amendment, that's an easy, it's a one line, basically.
If we can find further time.
You can temperatures in one.
And you have somebody you know?
I think he, no, yes,
Okay,
yeah, I mean, that's part of his business.
and then if you can share some of that, we can share it around.
Can I be emailed that
Yeah.
list or a copy of it, so I can show it to him?
Mhm. Thank you, Jordan.
Okay, and so both of those. Proposed budget in the parking lot. You consider at the October meeting.
These were the,
Yeah, those are all the details.
Is this a duplication 8? And
looks like it's a.
yeah, all right, so let's just cross out. Okay, and there's a duplication too with,
Well, wait a second.
okay. What we
What
need-
we're doing is reviewing and approving the JA
Oh, J.
twenty twenty-three budget. And that, we
Oh,
have
sorry,
to
sorry.
also approve the JA
I didn't either.
24 budget. Amended and approved.
That's right. This has already been approved by JA.
It's been approved by JA, it's been approved by MBLS, but because the meeting was when we don't have meetings,
Right.
they're waiting for us, they're waiting for you all to approve it. And I can answer any questions. It's a pretty simple budget. So the first one, H, is the 2023 budget amendments.
So what's being amended exactly? Polaris, it looks like e-content.
Looks like it's gonna increase, there's more interest. This is reflecting their actual. I could get Michelle to, do you want to go into the detail and have Michelle come in on the phone call? It's just balancing it with the real expenses.
So they're taking the estimated and reflecting what the actual expenses were. Okay.
You're talking about H now, the amendments first?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Same thing we do with our SALS budget.
One motion?
Yeah,
I'll put that one.
Margaret moves, seconded by Sue. Any further discussion about the budget amendments for 2023? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. Now we come to the 2024 budget. Just need to know the major differences.
I believe there was an explanation of the 2024 draft
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah,
And I have that in front of me, so, there's a 3.5% increase in salaries, which was something that we had already discussed.
Similar to what we just approved for,
The other,
or asked to approve. Yeah.
there are, software and maintenance and Polaris and, the Sky River cataloging, all of which have a 3% increase per a contract that was signed in 2020.
Okay.
Generator maintenance of $943, again, that's per contract, so. I have the explanation in front of me, but I don't have the explanation and the budget, so, oh, we've got that. There's the budget.
You want the budget back?
I got it.
It's, oh, there,
Yeah.
it's right up there.
That's the explanation.
Yes.
No, on
the right-hand side.
oh, I see what you're saying.
So the total expense proposed for 2024 is $1,012,528. Which is $7,563 less than, the expected income for 2024. So we're having a book sale.
Right, a big book set.
Yeah. It's a problem.
I know.
Yeah.
I was thinking, no,
So, I'm making a motion, that we accept the JA draft budget for 2024.
is there a second?
Second.
Second, by
Seconded by who?
Me.
Elaine. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. And finally, we have the appointment of Jesse Jensen.
I hope you appoint him, he's started working already.
Well, I'll move that.
We'll prove it. A second.
Okay.
If you know, somebody has to go and tell them.
Bye-bye.
Who seconded?
Me, thank you.
He needed to start and our board meeting was after and he was vetted and he's got impeccable qualifications, so we're very lucky to have him.
Okay, we have to vote. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. It is the Director's Council report.
No,
Okay, any further announcements? All right, we will see you,
I actually have one further announcement.
Go ahead.
The library closer to Waterford, a long time, full-time clerk has retired, deservedly. And, Tim thought, and we have another full-time clerk, we're looking for a part-time clerk. We thought we had one, we don't. So we are now down to a director, a children's librarian, and one full-time clerk. Yeah, and so juggling the hours is really problematic.
sure.
So if anyone knows someone who might want a part-time clerk position in wonderful Waterford, get in touch with them.
Keep my ears open. It's for neighbors. Also, Clifton Park, was it Friday? Mary Lou, who is one of our assistant directors, the one that did the planning and public relations and all the rest of that, retired after, she had been everything from adult services librarian head to children's librarian. She's been with the library for a good 25 years. And decided that they sold their house and they bought a smaller one up here in Saratoga Springs, so. And they said that Clifton Park will still be their favorite library, but they might be coming your way too. So watch out, they know what they're doing, she and her husband, so. All right, any further questions, comments? All right, everybody have a great month and we will see you on the 17th of October.
Okay.